Okay, you guys, your next speaker has spent time as a licensed embalmer and licensed funeral director, and now works as a forensic autopsy specialist for the County of San Diego. Please make it really loud because she might be dead and can't hear you, for Deanne Rugani.
Sorry, guys, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm actually used to being in a room full of dead people. My presentation, Casket, Corpses, and Beers, oh my. It's a brief look at death care and the history and science of embalming in the United States. When I first started telling people that I was going to be doing this, one of my snarky coworkers said, "What makes you think you're qualified to do this?" That's my snarky coworker voice, just so you know. And I said, "Come on, man, I'm like a death genius, right?" So then I came to Nerd Night last month, and I saw the speakers, and I heard all the great questions, and I thought, "Oh my God, I am so dumb." So I, for my own ego, have made a list of what I think are maybe my qualifications to be here tonight, to run through real quick. I'm not sure I'm here. So I am a California licensed embalmer. I am a California licensed funeral director. I graduated from the San Francisco College of Mortuary Science with a degree in mortuary science in 2002. I passed the national board exam in 2002, which at the time made me eligible to sit for a test in 49 out of the 50 states. The only state, of course, that did not recognize the national board exam was California. So I have about 20 years of experience in the death care industry, and in that time I've worked pretty much every job from washing cars, running death certificates, all the way up through mortuary management. I am a certified crematory operator, although I have not cremated a human body or anybody in about 15 years, so I do not consider myself an expert in that right now. I'm a restorative artist, which pretty much means if you're in a horrible accident and your head falls off, I will put it back on for you before your funeral service.
Thank you.
I'm a trade embalmer, which means it's like a independent, people can hire me to embalm for their mortuary if they don't have a licensed embalmer. And I currently work as a forensic autopsy specialist with the San Diego County Medical Examiner, which is both a fascinating job and an absolutely disgusting job, just so you know. And I know what you guys are thinking at this point after hearing all my qualifications, because I have heard this a million times in my career, but you don't look like a mortician, Deanne. Right. Because media, television, movies have made us all look like this. Big, scary, old, creepy men that are going to sell your body parts. This is a misconception, obviously. A lot of us look like me. All of us maybe look like that. But it's actually what I look like with no makeup on. But this is one of many misconceptions. There's actually a lot of them in this industry, and I'm going to go over a few of them with you real quick. The first one, a dead body can sit up. Everybody's got that uncle, neighbors, brothers, girlfriends, dogs, cousin that has been to a mortuary and magically seen a body sit up. This is not possible. Anybody that wants to challenge me, I dare you to lay down on the floor and try to sit up not using a single muscle in your body. It's not going to happen. And some people will say, well, what about when you get gas build up and the body reacts? No. By the time you had enough gas built up that you would be able to sit up, you would be so distended and bloated that you wouldn't physically be able to sit up. So this is wrong. This is a myth. Embalming will preserve a dead body forever. That is wrong. We are actually required in California to tell families this when we meet with them. Embalming these days is for temporary preservation. It's not for long-term preservation. It's not that you can't stay around forever if you're embalmed, but it's not geared for that these days. Time of death can be determined by liver temp. I love this. We still have a doctor at the medical examiner currently that will take a liver temp at the scene of a crime because he's old school and he likes to do it. You cannot determine time of death by liver temp. You see it on TV all the time, though, right? They're cool. They walk in, they're like, oh, this person's been dead for 3 hours. No, it doesn't happen that way. The LA County coroner actually did a study where they knew times of death for people, and they took the liver temp on those people to see how accurate it was. And not only was it not accurate, but they determined that 50% of the time they weren't even actually getting the temp from the liver; they'd hit a different organ instead. So it's really not an accurate determination of time of death. Oh, wait, it's the arm laser pointing. I told you I'm not very smart. Cause of death can easily be determined at the scene of a crime. Again, on TV, right? They walk in and they go, whoa, he was stabbed and it went through his aorta. Like, no, that's why we do autopsies. You can't determine cause of death at the scene. You can tell whether somebody's been shot or stabbed, absolutely. You can't tell what it hit until you get inside that body. Let's see. Decomposition is a process in which worms eat you. This is funny because somebody actually asked me this question a long time ago. This is when you die and you're buried. Where do the worms come from? Do they come out of your stomach? I'm like, oh, no longer the dumbest person, right? It is not a process by which worms eat you. It's actually autolytic and bacterial enzymes that eat you from the inside out. If you die outside, if you are buried without a casket, of course worms are going to eat you, bugs are going to eat you, everything's going to eat you, but in general, that is not what decomposition is. And hair and nails continue to grow after death. We hear this a lot in the funeral home. That is actually not the case. Your skin starts to dehydrate after you die, and so it gives the appearance, the hair and nails will go, somebody dies one day, the next day they have a 5 o'clock shadow. It's not actually hair and the nails continuing to grow, it's the skin actually receding. Okay, so we're going to go over a little bit of death care vocabulary. First one, an embalmer. Me. One who is licensed by a state or states to disinfect, preserve, or store a dead human body to a natural lifelike appearance. In California, you must have a license to do any type of invasive procedure with a human body. In Colorado, you don't. So if any of you want to be embalmers, go to Colorado. You don't need any education or a license. They don't care. It's the only state that they don't care. Funeral director is a licensed professional who specializes in all aspects of funeral service, including but not limited to arranging and directing funeral services and providing support for the bereaved. You don't have to be licensed. You have to be licensed in the state to call yourself a funeral director. The state is really weird about that. If you portray yourself as a funeral director anywhere, verbally, online, in writing, you can be fined from anywhere from like $100 to $5,000 depending on the severity of the infraction. But you can do this job without having a license. And other titles you can use are funeral arranger, arrangement counselor, bereavement counselor, funeral attendant, service director, and my least favorite in the world, memorial specialist, because it just sounds dumb. Mortician and undertaker. These terms are thrown around a lot. They're actually, undertaker is a ridiculously old term. The meaning of those words have changed a lot over time. Right now, pretty much they're used to describe somebody who's licensed both as a funeral director and an embalmer. But really, there's no wrong. I mean, if you can call me whatever you want because I've got everything. But it doesn't really matter. You can use either one of those terms. The crematory. The crematory is not the actual oven that you're cremated in. It's the building that houses that oven. The retort is the actual oven that you're cremated in. So they are two different things. Interment versus entombment versus inurnment. These ones get confused a lot. Interment and entombment are essentially the same thing. Interment usually refers to somebody that's buried underground. Entombment refers to being buried above ground. What I hear a lot is people using the word internment. That is something completely different. Do not put an N in that word. Inurnment is having cremated remains placed inside of an urn. Mausoleum versus columbarium. You can have a columbarium and a mausoleum. You can't have a mausoleum and a columbarium. Mausoleum is for above ground burials, full body or cremated remains. Columbarium is for burial of cremated remains. Crypt versus niche, same thing. Crypt is for a full-size body. A niche is where you inter cremated remains. Okay, coffin versus casket. These terms are used a lot. They are not the same thing, but people use them back and forth all the time. This is a coffin. We call it toe pincher. Small on the top, wide at the shoulders, small at the toe. That over there is a casket. It's square. You don't find coffins very often in the United States anymore. You can still order them. We actually buried my father-in-law in one a couple years ago. It was amazing, built by monks. Fantastic. The caskets. Are you guys like, oh, that is fantastic? No, not really. If you have any questions, yes, I did involve them. Yes, it was very tragic for me. The casket is what you find now. And actually, depending on where you are in the United States, the caskets are different. Here on the West Coast, you're going to find a half couch casket. It's open in the top so you can see the head, closed in the bottom so you don't see the feet. On the East Coast, you're going to find a full couch casket. They want to see the whole body there on the East Coast. The East Coast is much more formal on the East Coast than it is on the West Coast. If you like both of those looks, you can actually get a full couch casket with a toe panel. So you get the cover. I actually call this casket the chafing dish because it just looks like a chafing dish there at the bottom. And just a side note, this casket up here in the corner, the full couch, that is a Promethean casket made by Batesville. It is not a solid gold casket. It's actually a bronze casket that's gold plated. That is the casket that Michael Jackson was buried in, and it's similar, I think, to the casket that Robert was buried in. Funeral home versus mortuary, again, words that are used interchangeably, but not the same thing. A funeral home is a building that was originally designed to be something other than a death care facility. A home, I don't know, a restaurant. We have one here in San Diego that used to be a restaurant, is now a funeral home. A mortuary is a building that was designed to be a death care facility. And the words are so interchangeable that actually funeral homes and mortuaries screw it up all the time. This building here used to be a house. It was owned by the Mayer family, and they converted it into a death care facility, and then they named it Mayer Mortuary, even though it's technically a funeral home. So it's very confusing. Hearse versus funeral coach, again, interchangeable words, completely different things. A hearse is a horse-drawn carriage, and you can actually still get these today. Miramar, this is actually a picture from Miramar National Cemetery. They offer veterans a final ride to their resting place in one of these cases. It's also called a caisson, in the horse-drawn caisson. There's a company in Alpine where you can rent these for your funeral services. A funeral coach is what you would traditionally call a hearse today. It's a car used to transport decedents to their final resting place. Just a quick side note, landau bars. You guys see these on the back of the hearse, this S shape? That's actually a throwback to the Victorian era. The horse-drawn carriages back then had these landau bars, which were part of the convertible top system, and they put them down on the side of the coach. They have no practical purpose other than just kind of a throwback to history. Okay, there are definite no-no words in this industry. I'm only talking about 2 of them today, but there are words that you cannot use in a funeral home. The first one is the word corpse. It is a legal term to identify a human body. It is not a good term to use in a funeral home. This is a corpse. This is not what your grandma looks like in my prep room. And if this is what your grandma looks like in my prep room, we have way bigger problems than what you're calling her. Words that you can use instead. Decedent body remains, loved one, Mrs. or Mr. last name. I have a friend that uses the dearly departed all the time, which is very endearing. And you can use the word cadaver, except that is generally saved for bodies that are being donated for medical study. Ashes. I know we use this word all the time. What you get back after a cremation is not ashes. Ashes come from a fireplace. Cremated remains or cremains come from a retort. And anybody that's been through mortuary school knows that because they beat it into your head in mortuary school. Do not use the word ashes. And I just put this one in here because it's in my title. This is a bier. This is what the casket sits on during a funeral service. And the fancier name for it is a catafalque. You'll see it like at the presidential services, a stand with the drapes on it that holds the casket. All right, so a quick overview of death. Death is a noun. It is the extinction of life, a permanent cessation of all vital functions without capability of resuscitation. Everything that happens immediately prior to your death and immediately after your death can possibly affect the embalming process and the appearance of the decedent. So everything that happens in that time period is important to me as an embalmer. So we have a couple different stages of death. This is actually before death, your agonal state, it's ante-mortem. This is a period of time immediately preceding or prior to your death. This can last a few seconds. If you die a little traumatic death, it's going to be almost instantaneous. If you die a long, drawn-out death from an illness or old age, it could go on for several hours, up to a day. In the agonal state, you're going to have several body changes that could eventually affect your embalming. Thermal changes, your agonal hour, agonal fever, that's if your temperature will go up or down. The blood changes, coagulation will start to form clots in your system, which is a headache for embalmers. Moisture changes, you can get edema in your skin or dehydration of your lips and your eyelids. The edema is a major problem because it will cause secondary dilution of your embalming fluid and really screw up the whole process. And then bacterial migration is one of the big ones. What happens right before you die is the bacteria that's generally confined to your colon will migrate out into your bloodstream and be transferred throughout your body. It starts the decomposition process early. We don't see that in somebody that dies a tragic death in an accident or something like that, but we do see it in extended deaths, and it can really kind of speed up that whole process and make our job a lot harder. There are 2 types of death that occur. This would be after you die. Somatic death. This is the death of an organism as a whole. In other words, the body's loss of ability to function as an organized creature. Somatic death itself has 2 stages. Stage 1 is clinical or legal death. There are three main things that can happen for you to go into clinical death. Your heart stops, your brain stops, or your lungs stop. During this clinical stage, which only lasts about 5 minutes, if the circumstances are right, you can actually be brought back to life for that short period of time. Once the clinical stage is passed, you can no longer be brought back. The second stage is biological or irrevocable death. At this point, you can't be brought back from the dead. Tissues and organs have undergone irreversible changes to the extent that restoration of life would be impossible. In this stage is where we run into the Mortis sisters. That's what I've lovingly referred to them as: algor mortis, labor mortis, and rigor mortis. These all affect the embalming process and the appearance. Algor mortis is the loss of body heat, cooling of the body after death due to the body adjusting to the surrounding medium. You will actually get a spike in the heat in your body right after death. Your cells are still going through oxidation, but the system in your body that regulates temperature is no longer working. So you will get a slight spike, and then your body will cool off to whatever medium is surrounding it. So if you're sitting on a metal table, your body eventually will cool down to the same temperature as that metal table. It'll never get lower than whatever medium you're surrounded by. That can, if the body's cold enough, that can really mess up the distribution of embalming fluid. Cold body's a lot harder to embalm than a warm body. Livor mortis is the discoloration in the dependent parts of the body, dead body due to hypostasis. So if you're laying on your back, all the gravity is going to pull all of the blood into the lowest points in your body. During livor mortis, it's confined to the circulatory system. Within about 6 hours after that, it actually seeps down into the tissues, and then it's almost impossible for us to get rid of during the embalming process. Rigor mortis is post-mortem stiffening of the body muscles, both voluntary and involuntary, due to an accumulation of sarcolastic acid in the muscle tissues. This generally appears about 8 to 20 hours after death, and will usually last about 10 to 72 hours. That's a general. Not everybody's the same. The reason that is so important to embalmers is it's not only freezing up the muscles on the outside you see, but it is also freezing up the muscles on the inside, your heart muscles, your arteries, things like that. It makes pushing embalming through that body a lot harder. The cataratic spasm is what happens like if you die in a car accident, if you die a really tragic death, your body will go into rigor mortis almost instantaneous. We've actually had people come in that are still gripping their steering wheel. Or I had a friend that said he picked up a guy once that was still gripping a chalupa that he was eating when he died. I don't know. I mean, they're just, it's something that happens almost instantaneously. We see this a lot with suicides. We see it a lot with homicides. We see it a lot with like car accidents or tragic deaths. Eventually, that spasm will kind of turn into a regular rigor mortis and will eventually leave the body, but it takes a lot longer and it's a lot harder to deal with a body that's in that frozen state. Okay, cellular death is the second stage of death. That's when the death of individual body cells following the depletion of oxygen and nutrients in that dead body. So your body's going to keep going for a while after you die. And eventually the cells will run out of nutrients and they will also die. Usually occurs about 1 to 3 hours following somatic death. When you die, these are some of your options. You can die full body burial, and that includes burial at sea, burial in the ground, burial in pond, burial anywhere. Cremation, that includes burial in the ground, burial in the but it also includes, shooting yourself in a rocket into space, turning yourself into a record, jewelry, diamonds, whatever. Yeah, exactly. And turn into a tree, whatever. Body donation, which is great. You can donate your body to science. Usually, once they're done, they will cremate what's left and return it to your family. Cryonics, which I think is a giant scam. It's just me personally. It's like, hey, give us, $9 million to freeze your body, and maybe in 500 years we'll be able to reanimate you, but nobody who cares will be around, so who cares? Alkaline hydrolysis, which is actually only legal in 16 states right now. California is supposed to be fully legal, I think, beginning of next year. It's essentially the process of dissolving your body with lye and heat. Sounds pretty cool. You end up with pretty much the same thing as cremated remains. It looks the same. It's about the same as the carbon basis left. And cremation, which is not available in the U.S. It's more or less freeze drying your body and then shaking it into little bits. Sounds pretty close to me. Is that why we don't do it here? Okay, embalming. So this is the process of chemically treating the dead human body to reduce the presence and growth of microorganisms, to retard tissue decomposition, and to restore an acceptable physical appearance. Like I said, the purpose of embalming today is sanitation and temporary preservation. It's not for long lasting. It's for appearance, so you look nice at your funeral. It's to keep you fresh and looking good until you go into the ground. But it's not I've done many disinterments where we dig up people that have only been buried for a year or two, and they do not look like they did at their viewing. So, modern embalming is done through arterial injection of preservative chemicals. So we go in the artery and we drain out through the vein. Embalming preservation of the tissues is accomplished by chemical fixation or coagulation of the tissue cell protein. During the process, the protein is altered in such a way that it is no longer suitable for medium for food for bacterial growth. The altered proteins have a resistance to both autolytic and bacterial enzymes. At the same time the embalming chemicals are altering proteins, they are also destroying organisms and enzymes already present in the tissue. So they're killing everything that's already decomposing you, and they're making it so nothing wants to eat you anymore. For a while, until it wears off. The history of embalming. So when you hear history of embalming, this is what you guys think about, right? Ancient Egypt, skin jars, mummies, Anubis, all those guys, right? Yeah, this is the history of embalming, but not in the United States. So in the United States, the process of, actually, it didn't even start in the United States. In Europe, the process of arterial embalming was developed in Europe during the early part of the 18th century. There was a lot of people that actually tried to develop this process, and then none of them wrote down their findings, and none of them wrote down what they were using, and then they would die, and they had to start all over again. So this guy here, Dr. William Hunter, was the first person to actually document his methods and the chemicals that he was using to embalm. He would use oil of turpentine, oil of lavender, oil of rosemary, and vermilion to embalm the bodies. He would arterial inject it and let the fluids diffuse throughout the body. Once they were diffused, he would remove the viscera, and then he would soak that in essential oils and wines, because I'm guessing you can use any kind of alcohol to embalm a body, right? And then after soaking the viscera would be replaced, covered preservative powders, and then the body would be placed on a dry bed of plaster of Paris and allowed to remain there for 4 years. Our methods these days are a lot faster than that. This procedure, it dehydrated the body and removed the prime essentials of bacterial growth. So we did the job, it just took 4 years to do it. In the early colonial settlements, there were no undertakers. There's no recorded history of people that did this for a living, but they still needed to preserve their bodies. So a lot of people would use really crude methods to preserve their bodies. Sometimes they had people coming in from elsewhere to attend a funeral, and they needed to keep that body as fresh as they could for as long as they could. They would use things like disemboweling, filling the empty cavity with charcoal, and then immersing the body in alcohol, probably wine, some kind of alcohol. An arterial injection of embalming fluids was not notably present in the United States until the mid-19th century, when Dr. Thomas Holmes, a coroner's assistant, became interested in the preservation of the human. He experimented for a long time. Eventually, when he thought he perfected it, he hired himself out as an embalmer. He used, unlike in Europe, he used a combination of zinc chloride and arsenic. There was a lot of heavy metals and arsenic used in early embalming chemicals. We don't use it anymore because embalmers were dying. So the process of arterial embalming, I already did that, didn't I? Yes. Here we go. During the Civil War, Dr. Holmes was commissioned to as a captain for the Army Medical Corps. He essentially was put in the military to embalm the Army officers that were dying in war. And he did that throughout the war, but then close to the Civil War, nobody cared about embalming anymore. It just kind of fell by the wayside. Abraham Lincoln was embalmed, and shortly after that, it just kind of fell away. And it didn't reemerge again until the early 20th century, and that's when they started bringing in embalming education, supervised by the state board, the passage of laws requiring licensure and things like that. You had to be serious, then you couldn't just willy-nilly put stuff in dead bodies. And it's been modified over the years to what we do today. This is your arterial system. No, you're all smarter than me. You all know this already. You can embalm a body through any artery on the body. The ones that we generally use are the common carotid, on the right-hand side, and the femoral arteries. They're the biggest and easiest to access. I was actually on a dare once. I was dared to embalm a body through the dorsalis pedis. And about 1 centimeter of that guy's foot looked amazing. The rest of the body, not at all. So, either carotid, either femoral are your best bets. But really, you can embalm through a facial artery if you wanted to. It's just going to take you forever, maybe 4 years. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. I don't know. Let me go to the next slide, maybe. room. The reason I picked this picture actually is because it shows you the two different types of tables. This is the type of table I learned on because I learned to embalm 9 million years ago. Then we use porcelain tables because they're old and cool. But today they use these stainless steel hydraulic tables because you can actually move them up and down instead of just hunching over the table and hurting your back while you're trying to do your job. Oh, hey, wait, I remember what I was going to say. Okay, hey, so those are the arteries, the common carotid, the femoral. Those are what you're going to use in what we call a straight case. A straight case is a body that has not been autopsied. A post is a body that's been autopsied, and in that case, you're going to use both carotids, both axillary arteries, both femorals, any artery you can find where you can get some kind of fluid through that body. The process of autopsy just kind of really screws up the inside of the body, so it makes it a lot harder to embalm. Okay, embalming room. So embalming room, state of California is really, really crazy about this. You cannot have a surface in that room that is going to trap blood at all. Everything has to be able to be washed and sanitized. So no bare wood, nothing that's porous, nothing like that. You have to have a floor that you can easily hose down, which is like one of the best parts of the day. The holder and wash it on the drape. And then you're going to have your counter with a tube. You're going to have your faucet. It will generally have water that flows out, and then an aspiration system that sucks water back in. And I will explain why we do that later. These are your two main types of embalming machines. Tank on top, tank in the bottom. This is my favorite kind because I am short, and I don't like to have to stand on my toes and look at my tank to see how much embalming fluid I have left. I like to be able to just see it right in front of me. But this is kind of the new modern machine here. This regulates the pressure. It takes all the fun out of embalming. It regulates the pressure for you, regulates the flow. You don't have to think about anything. You just turn it on and go. I like the old school where you have to really concentrate and think about it. Okay, and these are some of the instruments we use. Not all of them because there's like a million. And I didn't bring any with me today because they are a biohazard and you can't touch them. So I figured it was probably a bad idea to bring anything. But these are some of the stuff we use. We use spring forceps, the injection tubes, that's what actually goes in your artery, carries the embalming fluid. Aneurysm hooks and aneurysm needles, that's what we use to raise your artery. Needle injector, which is the most horrible invention ever, and I do not use it. That's the thing way over here on the end. That is to set your features, which I'll explain in a second, and why I don't use the needle injector, because it's a horrible, horrible thing. Scissors, needles, all the surgical stuff we use. And then we use this horrible thing, which I hate, but we have to use. It's called a trocar, and it's for aspirating out all of the chemicals and fluids from your cavity. And this little thing over here is a trocar button. It closes up the hole when you're done. Chemicals. Every good embalmer should have a variety of chemicals. There are purists out there who, use dolls, use purists. They're stupid, because every company makes an amazing chemical, and when you combine them all together, you get an amazing embalming. Nobody should be a purist. So a good embalming cabinet, you should find many, many different types of formaldehyde fluids, many types of co-injections, many types of auxiliary chemicals. Okay, so I'll talk about embalming now, the actual process of embalming. I'm going to go quick because I could literally stand up here for 5 hours just talking about the process of embalming. We don't have that, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to lay the body on the table, you're going to assess it. You're going to look at the weight, height, age, disease, cause of death, straight or posted case, discoloration, tissue gas, etc. Anything that might hinder your embalming process. After that, you're going to determine your fluid mixture, and that's going to be based on your assessment of that body. If they have edema, you're going to use edema fluid. If they have jaundice, you're not going to use formaldehyde because the jaundice fluid will actually turn the deceived green instead of yellow. It's disgusting. It's really hard to cover up. There's a lot of things that go into deciding which chemicals you're going to use. Whether you're going to use formaldehyde, glutaraldehyde, index, co-injection, specialty chemicals, dye, and the number of gallons needed. Now, they did teach us in mortuary school this equation here for figuring out the primary dilution of our fluid. Nobody uses it because it's stupid. If you've been embalming long enough, you can look at a body, you can decide how much chemical you're going to use, what dilution you're going to use, how much water you're going to put in that tank. You don't need that. I can barely even remember how to. I was looking it up the other day, I'm like, oh God, did we really do this? Nobody's used that since we graduated. Nobody, I swear. Okay. Setting the features. This is the first thing you actually do to that body after assessment. You gotta close your eyes, close the eyes, and you close the mouth. People automatically think that we sew mouths shut. That's kind of true, it's kind of not true. We don't sew people's lips shut, that's gross. We do sew people's mouths shut. It's also gross. It's okay. Eye caps. These are used to close the eye. Those little ridges there are as gross as they seem. They actually hook to the inside of your eyelid to keep your eyes closed. And they also have a dome to them to keep your eyes kind of in a natural fixed position. Your eyes do dehydrate after death, and you don't want to walk up to grandma and her eyes are sunk back into the back of her head. It would be disgusting. And then mouth formers are used for people that don't have teeth, so that you get that kind of natural, pleasant look on their face instead of their face sunken, just sunken eyes and sunken mouth. That would just be awful. So the way that, eyes, once you stick those things in there, they're pretty closed. They're not going to open. Occasionally, and it's very tragic, but occasionally they'll open. Most of the time they're not going to. But to close the mouth, there's actually two different methods. There's that horrible needle ejector, which literally you take that thing and you are like jamming brads into the bone structure of the mouth and like twisting. It's awful. Like the feeling of it when you're doing it, you're like, oh god, it's awful, awful. So I use the super old-fashioned way, which is the best, and that is a submandibular suture. So I'll explain this to you. It's really disgusting. Everything about my job is disgusting. I love it, but it's disgusting. Take a needle and a suture, right? You go up under the what's this called? Your mouth. You go under the upper lip, up into the nose. Through the middle of the nose, back down, inside the upper lip. So now you've got the suture going through, and if you've done it right, you can't see it. And you've got suture coming out the top of the mouth. You go down in front of the lower lip. And this is where it gets difficult. You have to get that needle down without going through the skin, hook under the mandible, and come back up the outside behind the teeth. And then you tie it together. The reason this is better is because anything that body bounces around, their head bounces around, that thing's never coming undone. Needle injector, a lot of times it pops open, and you're in the car, you're driving, grandma's bouncing around in the back. You open up the casket of the church, and she's like, ah! You can't change it then, it's too late, you've already destroyed everybody's day. Okay, so, setting features. The second thing you do is you're going to wash and disinfect the body and break rigor. Talked about rigor mortis before. Breaking rigor mortis, you are massaging the muscles, you're pulling the arms in and out, you're moving the legs back and forth, you're trying to get that body as flexible as possible. And that's going to help the embalming chemicals distribute throughout the body, and it's also going to help them give a much more natural appearance. You don't want to walk up to the casket and have something like, to be honest. So you want to give them the most natural appearance you can, and breaking rigor is going to help you do that. You choose which artery you want to use. Dorsalis penis, facial, I don't care, fingertip, it doesn't matter. You raise that artery. You make an incision, you pull back all the muscle, you pull back all the tissue surrounding the arteries, you pull the artery out. You do the same for the vein. You ligate them. You check your machine. You do want to make sure you have the proper pressure because I made that mistake before. You don't check the pressure, you don't check the flow, you turn on the machine, you walk back over to start massaging the body and the eyes are going, you can't fix that. You can't fix that. People say, well, they're already dead, you can't hurt them, go to bed. You can screw that. So you check your pressure, you make sure it's low, you check your flow, you make sure it's low. You open the artery, you place that little injection tube in there, and you tie it off so it's not going anywhere, because also the worst thing is when you're embalming and that thing pops out and then you're spraying, and you're ducking, and you're hitting your coworker, and they're swearing at you. I've been hit by fluid so many times. And then you put the forceps in the vein, because you're going to need to pull clots from that vein during your embalming process. So you've got, it's a mess over here. You've got your injection tube and hoses going to the machine. You've got forceps hanging out of the vein. It's a mess. And you need to turn on the machine, and you keep your fingers crossed, and you hope that you don't screw it up. During embalming, you wash and massage that body, and that's going to get all the blood moving. That's going to get, because the goal is to get all of it, well, you're never going to get all that blood out, but get as much blood out of the body as you can and distribute that embalming fluid throughout the whole body. And you can see it. Once you're trained and know what you're looking for, you can see it. You can see the color changes, you can see the tissue changes, you can see the body embalming, and you'll know kind of when you get to the end. Oh, they look pretty good, I'm done, yeah. Or like when they stop bleeding, whatever comes first. But you want to massage the whole time, and that'll help, again, continue breaking rigor and distribute that fluid. Because the worst part is to like miss a foot, and then you're at your funeral service, and you're like, God, it smells so bad, and you open up and grandma's foot is like decomposed, and you're like, oh shit, you know, once the injection is complete and the tissue is fixed, you remove all your instruments, of course. You close up the vessel, tie it off, which never actually works, it still leaks all over the place anyway, but that's what they teach us to do. You fill the incisions with hardening compound, and you suture it shut, wash the body, set it whenever you look, you put your head in a natural state, you put your hands, put your hands on your abdomen. I'm sorry, I'm very Italian, if I don't move my hands when I'm talking, so I can't talk. Put your hands on their abdomen, you set their arms in a natural pose, so when they're laying in that casket, they're going to look like they're asleep, and they're not going to look uncomfortable. And you cream up their face because the embalming fluid removes moisture. It wicks the moisture out of your skin, so you will dehydrate if you don't have some kind of a moisturizing fluid, moisturizing cream on your face, and then you pretty much let them sit overnight. And that embalming fluid does its job overnight. When you're done embalming, you will feel the fixation. By the next morning, you'll really feel it. You'll see that the person is well preserved, hopefully, if you did it right. The next day is when you do the gross part. You get your trocar, and then you go right above the belly button here, and you stab it in, and you have to suck all the fluid and all of the fluid out of all the internal organs. And then you hope to God that you don't hit the pelvic bone, because then you just don't get ever for the rest of the day. It's like the most disgusting feeling. And when these guys are laughing because they know this is my mortuary crew over here. And then you fill that cavity with cavity fluid, which will then kind of embalm the internal organs, and you close it off with your little trocar button. Recream the face and sit until you're ready to dress and Cosmo the deceased. And that is the end. This is navigating the death industry is really difficult. And so if any of you ever come to a point when you are doing that and you feel like you need some help, you need to reach out, I can't recommend mortuaries to you, but I can help you through the process, answer any questions you might have or anything. So if you want to write down my email address, you can email. I never tried it, but